Hello and welcome to the Xtra Edge, a sports analytics podcast powered by Kinexon Sports. Today, I have the pleasure to welcome Chris Tebel, who is former head of performance and strength and conditioning coach of VfL Wolfsburg or LASK, and who is a real expert in the topics of sports science, strength and conditioning coaches. Welcome, Chris.
Hello, René. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. The topic around this podcast is talking about performance tracking systems, talking about generating data, creating insights, and translating them into actionable insights so that everyone can work with the data and get the best out of it. I would say let's kick it off and talk about some data first. Chris, could you maybe give us a brief introduction to your career in sports data and analytics?
Yeah, I think I started when I started as a coach in 2011. I was a coach for the under 8 and under 9 football team at my hometown, Zurich. We made strokes on a piece of paper to count the players' actions, just to prove that it's better to do small-sided games than mid or large-sided games. When I imagine now with the tracking system of the ball, this work would be significantly easier for me, and I prefer to do it today and not back in the days. I think data and also analytics already came up at this time. Partly there was a lack of financial resources of a club, of the smaller clubs, or partly there was a lack of imagination also of the persons who lead the club. And so, a constant companion was excellent. And I think for most of the people, it took a while with having AMS systems or softwares or other tracking systems to get away from Excel. So for me, it was the first few years the same. I worked with Excel, and my biggest question was, the comprehensive picture of the player in a short time to get this. And spend the most time with the player on the field or at the gym, and not spend too much time in analytics and looking at the data and which system or which software can help me most. And this is still the question today for me. And technology has changed since 2011, and it's more makes it difficult, but definitely also easier when I remember making strokes on a piece of paper.
Yeah, I can totally understand that, and I think it's kind of also the fun part, and maybe also the mandatory part to make such experience, like getting a piece of paper, making notes on it, like manual observation. I think this is how everyone started, at least when I think back during the days of my studies. It was also one of the tasks our professor has given us back in the days, to get a piece of paper, make some manual notes, and make a manual observation and see how accurate everything is, how reliable it is. And once you have understood this, you can go back and get some automatization and create maybe insights and work with technology. But I mean, you mentioned it already, everything is developing over the course of the time. New technology is arising here and there. But from your personal perspective, how did your career evolve over the course of the time? And what inspired you also to focus a bit more on the analytical parts of your job?
It ultimately made my work more structured, I guess. At the beginning, there was a lot of confusion there with so much data. You didn't know which parameter were relevant for the players. And after a long period working with it, getting into it, know each other, trying out, comparing parameter with parameter and combining. I think I have now a base of key figures that I can use to get a good overview of each player, and that's the first part. It took me a long time, but for me now the most interesting is the longer I work with the player, the more you know how the individual profile differs to this baseline of key figures, and you learn how a player reacts on a training session. For example, you planned a sprint session, and you know, okay, this player's because of his individual program, his calves are gonna react most after this training, already during this training, for example. And there you can really work individual with the player, and before the training, during the training, and especially also after the training, giving him guidelines for effective regeneration program. So I think this is the point for me where it gets highly interesting, and this is why I love doing analytics, looking at the data, because it's giving me a more individual picture of the player, and I can work with him. I can go to the gym, prepare him. I can work individually on the pitch, and the data, I think it's giving me insights already before the training. So in the training, I can do some extras or some specialized exercises for a smaller group of players, just because I know, okay, he's going to react different than the baseline.
It's super interesting what you're mentioning. I think there are several pieces to it. So I think we have one piece with what you mentioned also in the introduction. It's like spending more time with the athletes. So technology can be supportive to allow that. It's on the other side also making the players better on a daily basis for sure, but also to understand how they react to certain drills, practices, so that you can also interact and give a better guidance. So I think this is super interesting. But maybe before we go a bit deeper also in such topics, also how to use data during a live session, or maybe going into new directions, I would love to also get some insights and thoughts on how a process of integrating a tracking system could look like. I know we know since years, and we've been in touch a few years ago, and I think it took a while until we finally made it to install our systems and equip all the players at VfL Wolfsburg. But I would love to hear you, and I think the audience would also be interested in that. How was the process for you back in the days, and what were maybe some of the most important pieces to make a decision to say we are going with Kinexon instead of any other provider?
Yeah, at Wolfsburg, the situation was like this. We used Polar Team Pro system, so we didn't have GPS at this moment, and we were looking for a new tracking system. And in addition to all other providers with GPS, there was Kinexon with the LPS system, and just having the idea as accurate data to have as possible motivated us to work, or to just in the beginning to speak with you and the other guys from Kinexon. Then it came down to the daily routine, I asked myself, okay, how can other providers and Kinexon can help me in my daily routines? And yeah, there was, with the same question as I mentioned before, to have more time with the players on the pitch or at the gym, and with some features Kinexon had at this time, which any other provider had. For us or for me, it was the answer. Okay, I want to work with Kinexon because they can do automatically reports directly after the training. So, for example, we had a head coach. He came in to the bureau after the training directly. He wanted to get insights from the training from the video analyst and also from the strength and conditioning coach. And for me, it was important to work with the player at the same time. And so with this automatic report, it was really easy to give him just a guidance. Okay, we did this at this training, and he had his thoughts or his feelings, and he wanted to have improvement from the video analyst and from the strength and conditioning coach. And this was a big point for me. And the second point was to have this overview and goal setting possibility, which any other provider had at this time, just to work or just to get in conversation with the head coach during the training about players or about individual exercises, having a great overview during the training, and just knowing, okay, on which player I have to pay attention. It made it a lot easier for me just to get a real quick report during the training with the head coach, getting in touch with him, because he was obviously he has other thoughts or thinkings at this moment. And yeah, you have to be precise at this moment and giving him the advice in one sentence and not the dialogue over 5 minutes. And these 2 points, Kinexon were for us in front of all the other providers. So it was clear for us. Try to work with you.
That sounds great. And I think maybe to underline those 2 points, right? I mean, repeated it, I would say already 2 or 3 times, that saving time, having automated processes so that you can focus more on the players and generate easier insights is something which is and was key during this time. But maybe apart from such advantages, what kind of challenges do you see in the usability of working with data and technology? Because I would assume not everything is perfectly working all the time, and there are also more stakeholders within a team which deal with data. So what kind of challenges did you see and experience over the period of time?
For me, the biggest challenge is you have a set of data, and more or many people work with it or have to work with it. And I don't think the system or the software is the problem. It's the biggest challenge is the people who work with it. I think you have to understand that some coaches or physiotherapists or strength and conditioning coach were already very successful at the time where there was a little data or no data. So they need a certain openness and understanding that data only supports decisions, and it should be an instrument talking to each other or have a deeper understanding of one player and not giving the solution. This leads me to the next point. In this discussion with different people, are they are involved, and they have different views on a player. They have different views on data, and I think the focus is still there's too much data than communication, and I think everybody has to understand. Okay, we focus on our key figures, discuss about it, and then having this discussion with everybody who has to be involved, and just speaking about the player and not about was it good, is the data good or is it bad, it didn't work out for some reason. Just speaking over a player and having a good decision for the player, with the collected data, with the feelings of a coach, with the feelings of a physiotherapist, and to make the player better every day.
Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting to hear, right? I mean, maybe one puzzle piece there is making sense of the data tsunami, right? So getting insights out of the waste amount of data you're collecting. And the other piece is still the feeling, the experience of coaches who are working and dealing with the players, so that you can really focus on what matters the most currently. And then I think there are so many synergies to it that it has to go hand in hand. But it's super interesting to hear those challenges, and maybe by sticking to the point of generating data, moving on to creating more insights. From your perspective, of the past years and the amount of data you have collected and the different coaches and analysts you have worked together, what significant insights or patterns have you discovered throughout your analysis over those years?
For me, in the last couple of years, it showed that, or I believe that a continuity in an amount of intensity of training's load, it just gives or leads to a greater resilience among the players, and especially numbers of sprint meters and HSR meters or high-speed running meters in a training week. I want the player should reach or should achieve match day -4, match day -3 when there is one game in a week. That's nothing new, that's nothing special, but for me, as I said, as I mentioned, continuity, it's highly important. And when you imagine that the player, a head coach in football has an average tenure of 9 months, this continuity becomes highly important in a club, not especially for the coach, but everybody knows that after a change of a head coach, there's a different playing style. There's always something new. The player didn't play it before, are more motivated, giving a little bit more. So the intensity in the training session is higher than before. There's a high risk of injuries. So you need this parameters, these key figures for me, sprinting and high speed running, just to measure and control the players not getting injured in this first week of a coach, because it's for everybody. It's not good. The player wants to show him or show the coach he's there. He wants to play from the beginning, and when he's getting injured, there's a problem for him, and also of course for the club. When some important players getting injured, they have to think about doing more transfers. That's money. And so for me, in a world as football where continuity is not how do I say, not always that important, because there's a lot of changes of players, of coaches, of staff members. There are, for me, as a strength and conditioning coach, so some easy key figures like these two, where I want to control and also give feedback to the head coach.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting what you're mentioning, and I think we agree that we cannot change the mindset and the sports landscape. So we will always see stuff coming and going, head coaches being fired, being hired. But I think the continuity in terms of measuring data, providing feedback to players is key. But as I mentioned, we cannot change the one part, but what we can change, at least also speaking from the provider perspective, is how we can set up the future in terms of analytics, technology, variables. And I mean, you already mentioned many topics, like what were advantages, what is important to you, what kind of metrics like speed, high-speed running are you using? You also mentioned some of the challenges in terms of communication, in terms of always collecting data, making sense of the data in the right way. But what is still missing from your perspective currently in the landscape of sports data analytics? Or what would be your wish, your ideal scenario looking forward?
Bringing all this data together in a easy way. I think that's the most important, but also the most difficult part. We have so many different technologies, softwares. We measure player with it. Bringing these together, making sense, making the right decision out of it, or just having the right discussion with all the staff members with it. This, I think, is the most important. And I heard a really interesting phrase from Dr. Matthias Colozzi, working at Borussia Dortmund at this moment. His wish was giving a fingerprint to the player. That shows as accurately as possible which internal factors are currently playing a role for this individual person, but also take external factors, of course, into the account. With the player having to do 10 different tests every day can't be the solution. It would be really smart having AI recognition from its norm, how is the deviation from its norm, simply measured by movement during an activation in the weight room or during a warm-up on the pitch, and get a live report of it, so the coaching staff can react really quickly to the situation, and just give the player the best possible training for the day. That's also means that having centralized all, as I said to the beginning, have all available player data and no longer work in individual silos, like medical silo, like athletic silo, like scouting silo, feelings of the head coach. Bringing all this together, it would be important to get this imagine of mine or in my head place.
That's super interesting. I think we could spend much more time on discussing those topics in more detail, but I would love to go into a bit of a different direction, because you also mentioned the the topic around saving time, automating workflows, getting real-time insights. And the question here is, you have made a lot of experience with the LPS system, which is already going in this direction of giving you real-time data without the need of downloading anything. If you will now think of adding the same components to a GPS system, would you also see this as a game-changing feature, or what is your opinion on that topic?
Yeah, I think as we had it before, it saves a lot of time working individually with the players, and also for smaller and big clubs, I guess there's a big point in having more time working with players. For example, when you're a smaller club and there's just one strength and conditioning coach, yeah, you have the time, because they're automated reports. You know direct, or because there are goal setting on the pitch. Yeah, you can work with it. You don't need a data analyst giving you an advice, and then you sitting back after the training, 3 hours after the training, and you speak about the training and we had too much sprint meters, for example. Okay, next week we're gonna change it. You can as one person, you can work with Kinexon directly on the pitch after the training too. It saves just time, and also in a bigger club, I think it's there. For example, there are more coaches working on the pitch after the training directly on technique, or one has to do more a top up in endurance or shuttle runs, and then there is a physiotherapist working with him. Yeah, it just gives directly a live feedback, and you as a head of performance can introduce to coaches, okay, not too much, because he had a lot of change of directions. So shooting on the target 100 times would be too much, or also for the physiotherapists doing some shuttles with the player. Just doing high speed running shuttles and not change of direction, because he had already enough this training session. And also there in a bigger club with more people working with player directly after the training, you can give some advices and some introductions, and this changed a lot the workflow. I guess it's back in the days there was really like this. Okay, you work with the player, they're gone 3 p.m. and then you look at the data and think, oh, but these 3 players, they did too much. And yeah, it would be great when the player is the logistic at this moment, because we can check with the physiotherapist his adductors, because he did too much change of direction, and it would be good to have a treatment today and not tomorrow morning he's coming in, oh, I'm really sore at my adductor longus. So yeah, this I think this has changed, and this is really I really like it this way. And I think the next game changer you talked about, I think what comes next few years, and I think bring a big change in the athletic sector, when tracking system calculates an actual state from training data for one or more performance parameters, such as, for example, force velocity based, just having the data, not doing the test, just train and getting some results out of the training's data. And furthermore, especially with Kinexon, with the ball tracking, this is also a possibility, not just in strength and conditioning, also in the technical area or tactical area.
Yeah, that's super interesting how you explain it to us. Thanks for those great insights. I think, especially if we talk about this diagnostics on the pitch topic, force velocity profiling, maybe you can give the audience some background to how can you use force velocity profiling? What are the benefits out of it? And maybe you can underline this with a concrete example, how you would use it or how you have been using it in the past.
Again, it saves time. I don't have to do a test or testing day during the season. In Germany, also in Austria and Switzerland, it's usual to have big testing, 2 testing days in the beginning of the preseason, and then a smaller testing day in the end of the preseason, and then you have 5 months or more no testing anymore. So yeah, it would help me to getting some insights like the force velocity profile out of the trainings data, because yeah, players change in 5 months, especially when they play a lot or they don't play or they got injured and coming back from an injury. Yeah, it would be nice to have these insights and not talking to the head coach. Yeah, we have to do a testing day in between of 2 games, 2 important games. Yeah, just not spending a time on the pitch, having a team training and going into testing days. Yeah, most of the head coaches would say no, we don't do it. Yeah, this would give me the opportunity, or this gave me the opportunity at Wolfsburg to work individual in a team training. Yeah, for example, we had the force velocity profile of each player out of the data, and we had 1 game in a week. So match day -4, -3 is focus on sprint meters, on high speed running, and I knew some players had to do more in the velocity part, or some more in the strength part. It gave me a possibility to do a pre-activation. It is in these weeks more focused on his not problems, but where he can improve. Also knowing when a player didn't get a minute of playing time, I had another day in the week where I can focus on this yeah, on the force velocity profile on his. And yeah, that's also, this is good possibility for me working also in the team training, more individual, and it's plannable before the training. It's not I'm coming into the training making 3 groups, not knowing what one or other is doing. Yeah, we plan it. We planned it. We have special exercise. We had 3 groups of players just because we knew at this time the force velocity profile of every player.
That's super interesting. I mean, especially force velocity profiling, getting additional insights, getting easy access to such information is key. Maybe before we go to another important topic, is there anything you would love to add from a force velocity profiling perspective, or you think there's not more to it because you already described it in a really good way?
Yeah, there's so much talking about force velocity profile in soccer or football, as we say in Europe. because for me it's just highly interesting to also to interact with staff members, doing some exercise, or talking with coach, about comparing some sprints or accelerations, deceleration, and with the technical impact. That's so interesting, and you can change from week to week. This also, as I said, the players were divided into 3 groups based on the results. The exercise deferred and in the weight room, and of course, speed training on the pitch, weekly speed training on the pitch, and then the coach is coming in, and then he was thinking about having some exercises closer to football, but not interrupting this speed or this force impact. And it was, for us, it was highly interesting to discuss about it. And I had the opportunity to work with the coach in Wolfsburg and LASK in Austria afterwards. And we just continued this discussion. And and I think these discussions, as we had it before, is just for the improvements of the performance for a player.
That's super interesting. Thanks for those insights. I mean, you mentioned also a very important topic quite often now. I mean, saving time again is one of the key topics, but improving the players' performance is, at the end of the day, part of the job description of a head of performance or strength and conditioning coach, right? So my question there is, we also now talked about LPS data, GPS data, then you have match data, then you have national team data. So you mentioned it also earlier during the course of our podcast, that bringing together data sources is one key aspect, and which is also something where room for improvement is still there. So my question is more, how do you see the comparability of those different systems, and how should teams approach the different data sources or integrating the different data sources into their daily usage?
I think everybody should ask himself which is the smoothest way to get this data from everywhere. Spoke about training data, match data, or also data during a national break when the players playing with the national team. How do you get this data and bring it all together? Individual training, rehab training. It's always the same. You should have one solution, and you should have an overview of every data from everywhere. And this often works with raw data or positioning data. And I think in the future this should be the basic requirement for all data collection. Regardless from where it comes, because just with this you can now after work individual when you have a lack of data during the 10 days of national break. You don't know exactly how to work in the next 14 days. You see the minutes, how many minutes you played in these 2 or 3 games. But yes, you have to collect the data from this time to be as close as possible to the truth.
I think there's not much to add. Maybe just I would love to take the chance to do some advertising for us as a company, because I think there's really one topic where I'm very proud of what we have achieved so far. I think if we're not only talking about football, which is definitely key today by having you with us on the podcast, but we are also having great partners and customers in the area of hockey, basketball, American football, so handball. I think all the different sports have this common issue of bringing various data sources together. Can be based on match data coming from optical tracking systems, maybe coming from national team where you have different providers. And I think one key aspect, again, which I'm very proud of, is the data processing part plays a crucial role within Kinexon. And I think we have already done a pretty good job on bringing those data sources together, because I mean, maybe giving those insights also to the audience. You were also a big fan of using the match data services from us, right? Maybe you can just add 1 or 2 sentences to that, why you were using it, and maybe also how you were using it.
It started with the problem that the Bundesliga took his time to give out the data. So the next day we arrived at the center and tried to do a training for player didn't play, or also player played, or just a couple of minutes. Giving a proper training without any data from the match. It was a problem. And also having this data into, the opportunity having this data from Kinexon live directly after the training, after the match, just gave us the opportunity to plan the next day or the next 2 days. And also having this on the same website, on the same cloud as training data, it made it a lot easier than just having a PDF report from the Bundesliga. This was a big game changer for us, talking about match data.
Yeah, thanks for adding those insights. And I think this is really also an exciting topic. Maybe as we are closing up the podcast and coming to the end, but I have maybe 2 topics we should quickly talk about. So the first topic would be to give a brief summary to our audience. So from your experience you've made and all the context and content you provided to us, what should matter most for the teams when choosing and validating different providers? So is it more going into the direction of accuracy, easiness of use, support? What would you highlight as maybe the 2, 3 most important topics, and why?
Yeah, we had it before a lot of time. Saving time is a big point, and giving some insights where I can work with the player. So easy usability is important, and for me, the support is important too. Having a constructive and proactive exchange with each other are important. I think in every collaboration you have. So I think the provider must be available to me really quickly, giving prompt feedbacks. Data analysts or athletic coaches must be able to describe their problems. So from the club side, so the support understands the words. So from this side, from the provider side, it should be a person at the support which understands the sport. So the club or the strength and conditioning coach or the head coach, he can speak in his language. That should be important. Yeah, and lately I've often heard that the term a data translator. I think that would fit quite good in this position. And yeah, secondly, I think a regular conversation between customer and provider is important. Club and provider. Yeah, what are current problems in your process? What are latest trends on a scientific level? Yeah, that can be mapped using data or something else. It's just this conversation has to yeah, we have to have this conversation to get improvement. Yeah, customers. I think the provider have to understand that the customer, they are often so absorbed in their work, in his own process or in their own process, that they hardly have time to think outside of the box. So it can be really, really helpful if a provider proactively comes up with new ideas or yeah, with problems other clubs had, and just ask, hey, do you have the same problem? Because sometimes I fixed one problem in my way, but it could be a lot easier. It could be fixed a lot easier. So it took me this way took me 10 times longer or 10 minutes longer than the other way. So yeah, just speak about it with the customer proactively. It could help a lot, because especially when you have yeah, two games in a week with a lot of traveling, you don't think about improving yeah, some softwares.
Yeah, nothing to add from my side. Thanks for sharing also those insights. Maybe wrapping up the podcast with some closing thoughts. Also, hopefully important thoughts for the audience and yeah, the next generation of strength and conditioning and coaches, athletic coaches. What advice would you give to young professionals who are also interested in yeah, pursuing a career in sports data and analytics?
I can only tell how it works for me. I think during my studies, I was involved in children football, as I said before. That was my introduction. I did an internship in Germany for my studies and worked for 5 months for no money. Even graduating, I started a part-time job and was able to slowly increase my workload. Yeah, it was important for me to get to know the processes in football, in a football club too, at coaching stuff. Yeah, for a few years without having too much responsibility. Yeah, what language is spoken after a win, after a defeat, after injuries of a top player. Yeah, that helped me afterwards as a head of performance, especially on the interpersonal level. And I don't think it's the imagination after you're graduating, working directly at the first team is normal. and I think there would be a lack of lot of social skills or soft skills, as you say nowadays. Because as I spoke, it's a different language from a head coach when he's under pressure, especially in football. He lost 3 games in a row. You can be sure at Bundesliga, the media is behind him, and he gets a lot of pressure. And knowing how they speak in this moment without having too much responsibility and have a safe job at this moment can be helpful, and you can learn a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I would underline the point of learning. I think you need to learn a lot because during studies you will not learn how the real life out there looks like. So you need to do internships. Hopefully it's not always the case that you have to do it without earning something, but unfortunately it's still the regular normal thing here and there in clubs. But I also think one key aspect is building up a network, right? And Chris, as you've provided us with great insights, I'm pretty sure that the audience out there is interested maybe in hearing more details about some topics or starting an exchange, especially about this exciting topic around force velocity profiling. If anyone wants to reach you, what's the best way to contact you?
I think the easiest way is via LinkedIn.
Right. That's good. So coaches, feel free to add Chris and shoot him a message. Yeah, thank you, Chris. It was really good talking to you. Thank you for joining us. And to the audience out there, feel free to subscribe to our newsletters, listen to all the other podcasts we have on the different platforms. If you have anything you want to know, you can find us on Twitter, LinkedIn, you can visit our website, and I think we will see us next time again. Thank you for listening, and Chris, thank you so much for sharing all those insights.
Thank you for the invitation. It was a pleasure, and hope you have a good day.
Perfect. Thank you, you too. See you.
Bye-bye.